Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about long-term thinking. I used to work at Fastems, which is a Finnish company that is owned by a very traditional owner family, the Aminov family. And the family had a saying. For us, a quarter means 25 years. I think that's a really great saying. It demonstrates how in their thinking, their portfolio of companies is passed on from generation to generation. And each generation is responsible for taking as good care as they can of these companies and passing them on to the next generation in as good or in a better shape than what they got them in. Now, that's some long-term thinking. It's interesting to contrast this with one of the current trends that's going on in public companies, CSR, the corporate social responsibility. So, public companies are trying to implement some of this long-term thinking and some of this thinking about how they affect the society by implementing a new function. Whereas in family-owned companies, that's really inbuilt, because it's the reputation of the family is on the line. They have to do business in a sustainable way, or otherwise the reputation of the whole family is at risk. And this is just not only family-owned companies as such, but other private companies as well. A good example is Dell. Dell used to be a public company. It was a public company for 25 years. But Michael Dell took it private a few years ago, and I quote what he said then. We're able to focus on customers and the long term, rather than activist investors. So, in Dell's thinking, investors had this short-term interest. They wanted to invest money into the company and get money out, but the customers had a long-term interest. They wanted to create a partnership. They wanted to have a steady supplier, a reliable supplier that they could work with for years to come. And these interests, getting money out of the company fast and getting a long-term partnership, were in conflict. And Dell's solution to solve this conflict was by taking the company private so that he could too take the long-term view as the owner, the same long-term view that his customers were sharing. And this would solve his problem. The matter of short-term interests. The real danger of short-term interest is that they overemphasize the importance of perception. So why create something of lasting value when if you can just create an impression that you might have something of lasting value and cash out on it, that's even better. This is not to say that perceptions are meaningless. A famous example from a few years ago, Stephen Elop's The Burning Platform letter that completely demolished Nokia's Symbian system. That's not something that you want to throw out. You don't want to throw out an existing product just because you might be replacing it with something else. Okay, I'm not saying that's something that you should be doing. That's not the long-term view I'm talking about. And ultimately, even value itself is a matter of perception. Value is subjective. Value is something that is created by the customer, not by the company. However, here we have to remember that the perception of value can differ. So if you create something that only appears to be of lasting benefit, then the customer might be satisfied initially, but they will be deeply disappointed when it turns out that it wasn't. Therefore, for a company that is looking to be in this for the long term, it's still always better to create products and services that are able to create lasting value to the customer than something that's only creating fleeting value. Because if you only create something that the customer thinks that's valuable for a while, you won't have those long-term customer relationships. Whereas if you create something that's genuinely valuable and something that's beneficial to the customer in the long term, then the customers will keep coming back. It is always difficult to balance the present and the future. And there is rightful criticism to privately owned companies because many privately owned companies are not very agile. They're not very flexible, not very fast to respond. However, many public companies, on the other hand, do have a tendency to neglect long-term interests. And that's why it's interesting to remember this aspect of privately owned companies, at least many of them, that the long-term view also matters. In fact, the long-term view may be what matters the most to your customers. And if you don't have customers, you don't have a company, so what matters to customers seems to be pretty important. That's something to think about. That was my thought for today. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you for watching. For more thoughts on lean, strategy, and business, please visit my YouTube channel, and if you like what you see, remember to subscribe.